Another crisis that Trump continues to all but ignore. In the meantime, Trump and his friends have strong views about what the rest of America should do. Quote, cut unemployment benefits to force people to go back to their jobs, end of quote. Defund Social Security and eliminate Obamacare in the middle of a pandemic, end of quote. Reopen public schools without resources or guidance. Reopen Main Street business without protection for workers so corporations can continue to soar. This is their plan. Second, and similarly, the economic pain remains unrelenting for millions of working people of every race and background who aren't getting relief they need. Meanwhile, both are doing just fine, some better than ever. This divergence in fortunes is unique to any recession in recent memory. And the painful truth is, we just have a president who just doesn't see it. He doesn't feel it. He doesn't understand. He just doesn't care. He thinks if the stock market is up, then everything's fine. If his wealthy friends and donors are doing well, then everything's doing well. If corporations see their valuations rising, then they must be hiring. But the best economists know what I know. I've learned growing up in Scranton and Claremont, Delaware, up the road, places where folks aren't invested in the market like wealthy Americans. A measure of our economic success is the quality of life of the American people. And if your stocks soar as families teeter on the brink of hunger and homelessness, and our president calls that success, what does that say about what he values? When you see the world in such a narrow prism, it's no wonder he doesn't see nearly 30 million Americans on unemployment. 1 in 6 small businesses that are closed right now. He doesn't understand what life is like for people walking by their boarded up shops. Educators afraid that doing their job, that job they love, will bring the virus home to the people they love. Or a parent searching for health insurance now that the furlough has turned into a layoff. No wonder he doesn't see the single mom forced to wait in a 3-hour food line. So for the first time in her life, so she can feed her family, because she's now part of the 1 in 6 households with children that don't have enough to eat. He wants us to believe that we're doing better, to keep it up and not notice that this remains the worst economic situation since the Great Depression. And our country faced a historic divergence in our way of life. Which gets me to my third and final point, and what the American people really need to understand. All the pain and suffering stems from President Trump's failure to lead. His sheer inability and unwillingness to bring people together. He likes to sign executive orders, actions for photo ops, but they're ill-conceived and could do more harm than good. He says protecting renters from eviction. That's what he's doing. But he's not giving them any support to pay the rent when it comes due. Millions of Americans will only be left with the terrible choice between eviction and living in the streets, or paying back rent they simply don't have, when there was an answer offered and rejected. He says he's continuing to provide enhanced unemployment insurance payments, but he cut the amount that everyone on it received, leaves them on the edge when it runs out in a few weeks or sooner. He should be doing his job of calling congressional leaders together immediately to get a deal and deliver real results for the American people. This is the first president in the middle of a crisis I've never seen has called Congress into the Oval Office. If I were president, that's what I'd do, and I'd get it done like previous presidents. Rentals, food, unemployment assistance, tens of millions of struggling Americans, student loan relief, small business support, and aid to schools and state governments that are going bankrupt. And as long as this pandemic and the accompanying economic catastrophe persist, no one should have their water or power cut off because they can't afford to pay the bill. Bottom line, Mr. President, do your job. Get off your golf course and out of the sand bunker. Call the leaders together in the Oval Office. Sit with them and make a deal. Make a deal that delivers for working Americans and eases their anxiety and pain. In July, I laid out my Build Back Better plan for an economy that works for everyone. Over the next 3 weeks, I'll be laying out the sharp contrast my plan has with the President's non-plans. I'll be asking the American people 3 basic questions. Who can handle the pandemic? Who can keep their promises? And who cares about and will fight for working families? Like the people here at West End, throughout this pandemic, they found their way to keep the center open safely and provide for critical services. No one here has been laid off. They adjusted their spaces for social distancing. They started a lending program to help local businesses, hair salons, and other small businesses. They continued their child care services, which is critical for so many working families. By pure courage, heart, and grit, they never give up and they never give in as to pursue the full promise for America. That's the story of the people of this community and this country. That's who we are. Give ordinary Americans just half a chance, and they never let the country down. They'll do extraordinary things. They'll never let us down, unlike the current president. And unlike the current president, I won't let you down either. That's what this election is about. Helping people unite, get together, move this country back in the direction that we can be. There's nothing beyond our capacity. Nothing. If we just do it together. Thank you all, and I now take your questions. I guess, are you calling on people, or how am I don't have a list, so you go ahead and call.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
This morning,
in reference to that article in The Atlantic and a call convened by your campaign, Mr. Khan said that the comments demonstrated that President Trump's life is a testament to selfishness and that his soul is that of a coward. You've talked about this as a different view of how you see the job as president, but when you hear these remarks, suckers, losers, recoiling from amputees, what does it tell you about President Trump's soul and the life he leads?
I'm going to try to be measured in my response. If it's true, and based on other things he said, I believe the article is true, I'd ask you all the rhetorical question. How do you feel? How would you feel if you had a kid in Afghanistan right now? How would you feel if you lost a son, daughter, husband, wife? How would you feel, for real? I know that's not your job to express that feeling, but you know. You know in your heart, you know in your gut. It's deplorable. It's deplorable. As I've said many times, I'll say again, these folks are the backbone of America. They're the heart, the soul, the grit. That's what patriotism is about. I've just never been as disappointed in my whole career with a leader that I've worked with, president or otherwise, that if the article is true, and it appears to be based on other things he said, it is absolutely damnable. It is a disgrace.
Related topic. What would you say to the supporters of the QAnon, the people who believe in that conspiracy, what they think is true about America, that there's sex trafficking and a conspiracy against President Trump. And what would you say to President Trump for not rejecting that conspiracy and the people who believe in it?
I've been a big supporter of mental health. I'd recommend that people who believe it maybe should take advantage while it still exists in the Affordable Care Act. It's bizarre. Totally bizarre. And now, have you guys found that plane load of people in uniforms and weapons and flying around? I mean, you know, have you found them yet? Is anybody even from, and by the way, I respect conservative and liberal points of view in the press. Anybody found that plane? What in God's name are we doing? Look at how it makes us look around the world. It's mortifying. It's embarrassing, and it's dangerous. It's dangerous. If the president doesn't know better, which he has to know better, then my Lord, we're in much more trouble than I ever thought we were. It's bizarre. And, you know, this is a case where, you know, I've been surprised, pleased but surprised, with folks I've had political arguments with, like the former governor of Michigan, coming out and endorsing me. All the Republicans are endorsing me. They're rich where I am. That this can't go on. I mean, this cannot go on. It's a deconstruction of a democratic system. They know it. So I just, I'll conclude with what you heard me say many times before. The words of a president matter, even a lousy president. It gives succor, it gives encouragement to people who are spouting irrational views that no one has even close to ever presuming or showing ever existed. And it's done for a simple reason. From the very beginning, he's understood the only way he could win the first time and can win this time is he fundamentally divides the nation. Puts the nation, divides us all at each other's throats. That's not who we are. That's not who we are.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Last night, President Trump mocked you for wearing a mask and said that this is a sign that you must have some, quote, big issues. He says this even though he knows that, according to scientists and public health officials, wearing masks saves lives. I wonder if you worry that this kind of language that comes from the President of the United States could deter some Americans who are tuning into him to not wear masks.
Well, I wear it for reasons. It's a big issue. I'm a smart fella. I listen to scientists. This is not a game. Life and death. Life and death. The reports that we're going to have, maybe, there's some reports there's another 100,000 dead, as many as 100,000 dead, more by the end of the year. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, I just, anyway, it's hard to respond to something so idiotic.
Okay. Before my second question, just quickly, have you been tested now for COVID-19? How many times?
I've been tested once with the deep test, and I'm going to continue to be testing on a regular basis.
Attorney General William Barr saying on CNN this week, he said that his assessment right now is that China poses the most aggressive threat to U.S. elections, even more than Iran or Russia. Do you believe him? Is that also your understanding based on the intelligence briefings that you have received?
No, it's not. Briefings I've received, and he's a lousy enough attorney general, but he's a really bad intelligence officer.
It's not consistent because you believe another country.
What I've been told, and you all know it. I mean, look, it's you even have outfits like Facebook taking some. Look, it's just there are a lot of countries around the world I think would be happy to see our elections destabilized. But the one who's working the hardest, most consistently, and never has let up is Russia. And again, it's unfair to say to you guys, but ask yourself the rhetorical question. What is he so afraid of Vladimir Putin about? I mean, what's the problem? I mean, nothing. Nothing. It's almost obsequious. I mean, anyway, I just want to make it clear. I believe any country that engages in any activity to delegitimize or impact on American elections is a direct violation of our sovereignty. And if I'm President of the United States, there will be a response.